Transformism is an exhibition of new work by two very different artists, Melanie Jackson and Revital Cohen. Melanie is an artist who works in a range of different media, and she's been exploring ideas around shape, form and transformation and materiality, both as it manifests in contemporary science and technology, but also bringing in ideas from history and folklore.
The Earth Plants project is something I've been working on for about 3 years now. It began just with a kind of curiosity about Goethe's idea of the Earth Planter, which he first established in the 18th century, in mid-18th century, when he kind of had a hunch, a prescient hunch, that if you could unlock the secrets of form of a single organism, you could then begin to unpick how things are made, how they collect together, how they grow, how they form, and possibly invent anything at all. The Earth Planter is like a generative form, basically. It starts with this primordial notion, but then it gets applied to things so they generate and have this kind of energy of excess. And there were several different ways in which I wanted to explore that. One is a kind of algorithmic, natural process that we've harboured in software, and particularly the musician Leafcutter John has worked a lot with Generative Max and with a little piece of software he invented called Forester, which allows you to input sounds and then it literally kind of makes these physical fields with them and sends an algorithm moving, travelling around this forest. And I enjoyed the fact that it collided with the theme of the work, and literally I have these kind of workstations in the gallery that are virtual forest. I've used these long tubes which are used in building construction, which also become, I think, quite forest-like, kind of little scenarios or posts of work. So I worked with him for a couple of days and we sound recorded all the materials that I'd used in the work. So we ran the sounds that I generated, we ran them through different speakers holding different substances. We found out the resonating point of clay and of plaster and of all the kind of waxes and inks and things I was using in just kind of playing in the studio. And we ran those through speakers to find out their kind of natural wavelengths. And then we input them into his algorithm so they compose their own track. I always intended to make a film essay, but halfway through it I got rather disillusioned with the form because I wanted the images and the sounds and the text to actually kind of work on people. There were lots of ideas that were traversing in one piece of work, and I just felt there were too many to watch on a kind of linear film essay as I'd first planned. So we discussed it a lot, and in the end I decided to make all those ideas, condense them all into a very small kind of comic book that could use comic conflations of space, so you can have ideas flying off each other. So in the gallery there'll be these islands of activity, of sculpture, of film and interconnected thinking, but the comic book is something they can take away and perhaps make sense of the kind of narrative that runs through them.
When you start out on a commissioning process with an artist, I think you think you know where you're going, or you delude yourself into thinking that you know where you're going, and then the artist takes you in a completely different journey, and that's the really enjoyable part of that process. Revital Cohen, her work is 2 film pieces, one film piece and one film installation, that were made in Japan, and she's been looking at the culture of Ranshu breeding.
Ranshu is really an over-designed goldfish that its breeders' one ambition is to go as far as possible from the carp. For a long time I've been really interested in the idea of what would products mean in the sort of age of biotechnology. When we can tweak biology, what kind of products would we make? And I was very curious about this definition of the biological product. And then I started thinking maybe this sort of amorphic idea is more everyday than it seems. And I started being very, very curious about animals that people design and make. Goldfish for me were a really good case of illustrating this. They are animals that people make simply to look at. They are not companions, they are not even food, they are just part of an industry, but completely aesthetic. So in the film, it shows a house of one of the breeders that I went to visit, and also the marketplace of goldfish, which was an incredibly interesting place and really illustrates how these animals are part of industry and are an industrial product. Most of the film focuses on the annual Japanese goldfish competition, where people from all over Japan bring their ranchus and compete for best in show. Fish there fulfill nearly every possible sort of role. They are food, they are culture, they are pets, they are just kind of a national obsession. A lot of them felt that they are keeping an old Japanese culture alive, a tradition from the Edo period, and in that way the ethics of animals are completely irrelevant. These fish are designed for the sole purpose of viewing, and viewing from the top, because these fish were invented or created years ago, way before glass, so aquariums as we know them, or fish bowls, did not exist, so you can only see a fish from kind of top down. So I wanted to create this experience of standing above one of these fish bowls, looking down on this thing, and I animated it to have a synchronized swimming sequence, which is also in a way an extremely unnatural movement, which I thought really suited this extremely unnatural animal.
Originally, my idea is that both the artists were exploring the exchange of ideas about shape and form and materials and nature across culture and science. I think both of them have gone in very different directions with that, and I think it's quite exciting to see how they collide in the Transformism exhibition.